Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session about European standardization to support research and innovation. First of all, I would like to remind you that this session will be recorded, so if you don't agree, please switch off your camera and micro. And then I would like to thank a lot all the projects that have joined to this session today. Thank you very much for being there. And of course, to all the people not belonging to this project that is also participating. I would like to introduce myself. I'm the speaker today, and my name is Javier López-Quiles, and I'm project manager at the Spanish Association for Standardization. I also the representative of UNE in the AID4GREENEST project. Let's go with the next slide. Some advice to get the most of this seminar. Just remind you that it is being recorded, and please mute yourself to avoid any noise in the background. If you have some question, I think it's better to write it down in the chat. We will have at the end of the session a part for questions and answers. And of course, these presentations will be shared later. So let's go with the content of the session. The first part will be an introduction to the standardization landscape. I will try to provide you an overview of the standardization system and in the European level, a bit at the international level too. Then we will go to the benefits of including standardization in research and innovation projects. How can standardization be good for your project? Next part will be how to include this standardization specific activities that you can perform within the research and innovation project. Then we will go a bit deeper into a standardization document called CWA, CN Workshop Agreement. And finally, we will study some success cases, examples of how standardization has provided results to research and innovation projects. But this is not all. We will have some quizzes all along the session. At the end of each part, we will have some questions. So in this way, you will be able to participate also. So let's go with the introduction. First of all, I would like to introduce my organization, UNE, the Spanish Association for Standardization. That is a non-profit, private, and independent organization that was designated by the Spanish administration in 1986. We are located in Madrid with 80 people working all days, and our main activities are producing national, European, and international standards, with a lot of technical committees and experts involved. With respect to research and innovation, we have participated in more than 100 projects. And we are also member of the most relevant international and European standardization organizations. About these research and innovation projects in which we have participated, here you have a summary of them. Most of them related to materials, biotechnology, energy, and industry. I think perhaps some of you are in this slide too. And to talk about the standardization, I think the best way is, first of all, to ask ourselves, what is a standard? What do we understand by standards? And we can say that it's a technical document that specifies rules, requirements, guideline definitions. It's something that is useful to specify specifications, requirements for certain products, or perhaps orientations for processes or methods, or even the terms or definitions in a way to establish a common understanding among stakeholders. A standard is also voluntary. This is important because usually it's confused with legislation and regulations, but this is not the case. Standards in principle are voluntary, and they are only mandatory in the case they are referenced in legislations. But this is not the case. But it's true that standards can support legislation, can be useful for legislature to make policies applicable. Finally, standards are produced in a standardization organization, even more recognized standardization organization. This is important because these organizations provide transparency, openness, and the possibility to reach consensus among all the interested parties. Perhaps you know that there are several international standardization organizations at the international level, ISO, IC, and G2. At the European level, SENS, like ANETSI. And at the national level, each country normally has its own standardization body. And it's important to know that these three levels of standardization organization are normally linked. They share common rules and they are subject to European and national regulations. There are other standards development organizations that perhaps you know, for example, ASTM or ASME. There are a lot of them, but they are focused in specific sectors. They have their own rules and they are not subject to international agreements. And once we have known about the standards organizations that develop standards, I would like to show you how standards are produced. We usually part on the basis of the stakeholders' needs, of market needs or policy needs that can have manufacturers, users, the academia, the associations that look for a standards development organization that is the provider of common rules of transparency, reliability, characteristics that are important when we talk about the standards. These stakeholders, in a voluntary manner, participate in a technical committee dealing with a specific topic that reach a consensus and finally produce a standard. Once we have talked about the technical committees and the standards, it's important to know the different types of deliverables, different types of standards that we usually have. The top level document is the standards itself, that is the EN, the ISO standards, and represent the full consensus among all the stakeholders. And a step below, we have the technical specification that is focused and it's more useful for technologies not enough mature. They have less consensus for approval and a limited duration. There's another type of document that is the technical report. That it's a document that not contains requirement or specification, but just information of any kind that's have been found interesting to be known. And finally, a type of document that is not produced into a standardization technical committees are the third one, but in a same workshop, that is the workshop agreement, the CWA. Please keep in mind this word, CWA, because we are going to talk a lot of this type of document during these sessions. The main characteristic, perhaps the most important of this type of document is that it's very fast to elaborate. When we talk about a standard or technical specification, we are talking about perhaps years of development. But in a workshop agreement, we talk about months to deliver this document. In this slide, I would like to show you a summary of some sectors for which standards are produced. For example, construction, chemicals, healthcare, and the types of standards, the different content of the standards that are produced for these sectors. For example, test methods to measure some properties of a specific product or services, how the services must be provided, the products with requirements or the definitions with the terms and definitions, that the standards that provide a common vocabulary for all the stakeholders. And this is time for the first quiz. So I don't know if you know Menti, but it's quite easy to use. You can use your computer or your mobile. Well, I think that you have clear ideas of this. Well, you can choose more than one answer, of course. Well, I see that most of you has correctly answered to these questions. Here you have the correct results. Standards are not developed only by legislators. In principle, they are developed by the standards development organizations. And legislators can make use of standards for their own purposes, for supporting regulations, directives, and so on. But in principle, standards are made by the standardization organizations. And in the same manner, standards in principle are not mandatory. They are voluntary documents. Well, some other question. Perhaps there are some doubts with the openness of standardization, that I see that not everybody has answered to this last question. Standardization it's an open activity, so any interested organization, person can participate through their own national standardization organization, or even at the European or international level in some way. So there is no restriction to participate. Perhaps the only restriction is to be related to the sector in which you will to participate. So thank you very much. Let's continue with the next part of the presentation. Okay, it seems that, okay. About the benefits of including standardizations in research and innovation projects. I always like to start this part talking about that the standards ensure very important characteristics for research and innovation project. We are talking about comparability, compatibility, and interoperability. We have always existing technologies, and with the standards, we assure that they comply with these characteristics and the existing technologies, or even within a project, there is the need to comply with these characteristics. Standards are also helpful to improve the performance and the quality of products, of services, or businesses. There is a way to ensure that these products or services are successful, and that they are of the best, the they comply with the best way to be performed, to be produced. In the case of organizations and talking about management and services provision, standards are good for optimizing the procedures, and this also have impact in the production time and in the cost of production. And also, if we have talked before about providing more quality, we are talking also about building trust among stakeholders. For example, a producer, a manufacturer, and its customer or client. Finally, in all the stakeholders in value chain, it's a trust that is built through standards. And also, standards are very helpful to disseminate knowledge, in particular for research and innovation project. It's a very, I think, good way to spread this knowledge and expertise and to be known by all the industry or a specific sector that can be related. Standards are also required at international level to access markets. In some countries, there are specific standards that are required to comply with, and this provide this possibility. And finally, as mentioned before, standards can support public policies, legislation, regulations. Legislature can make use of them to make sure that the legislation is fulfilled. With respect to the European Union policies, I think it's clear that its standardization is truly important when we talk about research and innovation. And for this, some words of the Commissioner for Innovation. Standards bridge the gap between research and market uptake. So standardization is a link between those two areas, from the idea to the market. I'm sure that you know that the standardization is a part of the KPIs justification for AID 2020 or Horizon Europe programs projects. So it's another way to understand standardization as a need for research and innovation projects. There is some European Union supporting tools to include standardization in research and innovation projects. The standardization booster, for example, that is another pilot project that provide information and advice on how to include standardization. They have a lot of examples, successful examples of how standardization is introduced, and a code of practice of standardization that is very helpful at the time of preparing project proposals. Finally, some CEN and CENELEC supporting tools, that is the Standards Plus Innovation website, also with an explanation of possible benefits of standardization for your research and innovation project, more focus on researches and innovations, and they include the awards of Standards Plus Innovation, that there are some awards that are celebrated every year, and successful stories about including standardization in research and innovation projects. And time for the next mentee. Next question. Benefits of including standardization. Okay, I see that you have clear ideas this time too. Perhaps more confusion with the last question. Well, with respect to the last question, I think, I don't know if I made a wrong question, but I understand that for the European Union, standardization and the market must be linked. So for this, I would like to remind you the words of the Commissioner that the standardization, the policies of the European Union involve standards and the market as the same thing. So are very linked in this way. They are not independent, that they are linked and they must work together. And with the first one, perhaps it's a bit tricky question because standards can disseminate research and innovation project results. For example, with the CWAs and other type of documents, of course. And I'm happy to see that you have cleared that the standards can facilitate the market acceptance of the innovation, and that including standardization is relevant for evaluation purpose of the projects. So thank you very much. Let's go now with the next part of the presentation. Okay, let's go how to include the standardization. Now we will talk about the objectives and benefits of including standardization. And first of all, I would like to make clear that for an innovation, in order to be successful, it is beneficial that it is to comply with the existing standards. Complying with existing standards means that the innovation is interoperable, is compatible, and the efforts have been rationalized. And this leads us to a first activity that can be included in the research and innovation project, that is building on existing standard, also using a standard when running the projects. And there is also, to be successful for an innovation, to be included in standards. We have just seen, and that the existing standards are not limitations for the innovations. In this way, we assure an increased impact. We assure the confidence of the users, recognitions, and in this way, we also identified a second activity that can be introduced into this research and innovation project. That is the contribution to ongoing and future standardization. For funding institutions, standardization is a tool that permits them to valorize the investment and a way to transfer the knowledge of the research and innovation project. And please keep in mind these two activities, A and B, that will be the basis for the next slides. And the first activity, the identification of the relevant landscape and applicable standards. That's, you remind, is the inclusion of the study of the standardization, the system, taking into account the standardization technical committees and the related standards, or even standards under development. The activity B, that is the contribution to the standardization, can be performed in two ways: via send technical committees, which the contribution to ongoing work, that means standards that are being developed, and with proposals or requests for modifying existing standards or proposals to develop new standards. There is another way to contribute to the standardization system, that is via SEN workshop. That it's a different technical body, as we have mentioned before. And in this type of contribution, the main character is the development of a new CWA, a new document of standardization. So during the next slide, we will explain a bit more each of these activities. About the activity A, identification of the relevant standardization. Related to the project, it's an activity that is usually performed by the standardization body within the research and innovation project. In this case, in AID4GREENEST, we have just made a first document about this, and usually is conforms a document or a deliverable entitled Report on the Standardization Landscape. This is an activity that is not performed alone by the standardization body. There is some needs from partners in the consortium, for example, the standards being used and the standards that are related, identified by the partners, and also information about the related technical committees. This activity, despite there is a first version of the report, can be developed all along the research and innovation project. About activity B, the contribution to standardization, we have seen that it can be done individually. And that means that any participant in a consortium can join to the activities of standardization technical committees and working groups. If you remember, we have talked about that the standardization is an open activity and every interested party can participate. The only requirement is to be appointed by a national standardization body. And this is an activity that is very advisable in the case that an very relevant standard is identified as crucial for the project. So in this manner, the consortium, the project can participate in the development of a standard, contributing to its content, for example. From partners, it is needed to comment draft standards or to participate directly in meetings. And this is done when those drafts are released by a technical committee or working group, or when a meeting is scheduled. There is another way to participate in standardization technical committees, and this is the case of the project liaison. In this manner, the project participates in a SEN technical committee as an entity. That means the whole consortium is participating. This is a very powerful manner to participate. And you should know that this kind of participation implies the payment of a fee. So the objective and the reasons for participating in this way must be very clear. Also, as the previous way, there is a need from partners, that is the ability to comment drafts or to participate in these meetings. If not participating directly in standardization technical committees, there is always the possibility to request modifications of the standards or proposals to develop new standards that can be sent to the standardization technical committees. These proposals should be based in some gaps identified by the user of standards or in specific standardization needs of the partners. From the partners here, it is needed to identify those gaps that may arise in the standards that are being used during the project, or on a specific need that appears when running the project. And finally, the way to develop new standardization deliverables, in particular the SEN workshop agreements, the CWA, that are produced in a SEN workshop, and that is a way to develop a fast standards. We are talking about months to deliver a CWA. In this case, it is needed the ability of consortium partners to attend meetings, also to comment drafts, and to reach a final agreement of these drafts. And time to the next question. To include standardizations in research and innovation projects. I hope you are seeing now the questions. I think they are easy, so I expect also good results as the previous one. Okay, I see that you have clear ideas too on this. With this question, what I look is to make the concept clear for everyone. That you have some ideas clear with respect to standardizations and research and innovation projects. Well, these are the correct answers. Most of you have correctly answered. Perhaps a mistake with the wrong ones, but the consortiums can participate in standardization technical committees. We have seen two ways to participate: individually as organizations, individual organizations, and as a project liaison, as the whole consortium. And CWAs are not developed in standardization technical committees. They are developed in SEN workshops that are different technical bodies, but under the same umbrella of SEN and SENELEC. Okay, thank you very much. Let's continue with the next part of the presentation. Okay, let's go with how to develop SEN workshop agreements, the CWAs. First of all, I would like to make clear the difference with between a SENELEC workshop, that is a temporary working group. It's not an event. Workshop in this case is not a seminar or a session. It is a working group, and that is open to the participation of an interested party. That means that a SEN workshop can include organizations that are not belonging to a project consortium. At SENELEC workshop are intended to elaborate SEN workshop agreements, that are the documents. A SEN workshop agreement is a publication made by SEN and SENELEC and are elaborated in the SENELEC workshop. The consensus is reduced to the participant in the SEN workshop. The main characteristic, as previously mentioned, is that they are fast to elaborate. They have also a limited duration of 6 years. And here you have a link to a specific Sentinel guide, Guide 29, with a lot of details on how is the process to develop some workshop agreements. We will see during the next slide this process, but if you wish to go deeper into this information, you can download this guide. Well, and why to develop a CWA in the basis of the results of a research and innovation project? The first thing that comes to my mind is about the impact. It's a way to increase the impact of a project, because these are results, a publication that can be spread and can be used to spread the knowledge, spread the results of a project. The agility we have also mentioned that can be developed in only few months. That means that can be produced during the lifetime of a project. When we talk about the standards, we are talking about years, through 3 years, but in most cases, this is not possible for projects, but a CWA can be produced during this lifetime of a project. It is a document that is open, so in this way, you are guaranteed a lot of consensus, not as much as an EN or ISO standard, but a lot of consensus. And it's a document that can be useful to be converted in the future in an EN or ISO standards. That can be a first step to make a more relevant document at the European or international level. And here you have a scheme about the possible topics for standards for CWAs, for example, and related to the technology readiness level. When we talk about knowledge, we are in the first levels and perhaps talking about terminology, the basis, or perhaps some methodology or measurement. When the technology is ready, we are talking about the testing or good practices, interoperability, and finally reaching the business level. We are talking now about products or services that can be topics for the CWAs. And here you have the process to develop a CWA. There are 5 stages that we will describe during the next slide. The first one is preparation. In this stage, the workshop rules are defined, as more in particular with the chair that normally is the coordinator of the project, and also the secretariat that is always the national standardization body. This standardization body can be a partner in the project or can be subcontracted, and also the participants in the same workshop that not always are the same participants in the consortium. This participant can be the partners themselves or external participants. And it is also made on a self-assessment about the proposal of the workshop description that is provided by the secretariat and the proposer of the workshop, and a study of possible sensible topics or overlapping standardization technical committees. That means that there is a need to study if the topic addressed by the workshop can be subject of some restriction, or if there are existing standardization technical committees that are working in the same scope as the workshop. In these cases, sense-and-elect decision may be needed. The next stage is the launching that occurs when the self-assessment is positive. That means that there are no conflict with existing sense-and-elect standardization technical committees, and that the topic is feasible to be developed. The Secretariat of the workshop informs them and Senelec, and a 30 days public announcement period starts with an announcement in the website of Sen and Senelec. And in this way, every interested organization can find information of the proposal of Sen workshop, about the work program of the workshop, the intended CWAs to be developed, and can express their intentions to join. Then the operation stage begins with the kickoff meeting. In this meeting, it is described the workshop objective and scope and the work program, which documents are going to be elaborated. The chair and secretariat are appointed, and also the participants. The drafting works begins too with the drafting of the CWAs. And this process is very variable depending of the research and innovation project or Sen workshop working way. But what is relevant is to inform standardization technical committees meanwhile. At the end, when an agreement is reached by all the participants in the Sen workshop, another consultation period of 30 days is open, and in this manner, every interested organization can study the draft CWA and comment it. If comments are received, the workshop participant must address them and include them or not in the final drafts of the CWAs. This process ends with the final agreement. Once the draft is approved by the workshop participant, this is sent to Sen and Senelec, and it is published in a couple of weeks. And it's important to remark that the CWAs normally are put for free download on the Sen Senelec website and in a specific area called CWA download area. So this is another reason for which a CWA is a good manner to spread knowledge, to disseminate project results and findings. The final stage corresponds to the promotions. The CWA can be used to spread that knowledge, to inform and also informing to the related standardization technical committees. And it's important also to note that after 3 years of publication, all CWAs must go through a process of decision that implies their confirmation, review, withdrawal, or conversion into another type of deliverable. If confirmed for 3 years, after 6 years, they must go through this process again, but only with 2 possibilities. That is the conversion to another deliverable, N or ISO standard, or the withdrawal. Here you have a scheme of the timing of all this process, but keep in mind that in total, we are talking about 3 months to develop a CWA, but the usual time is about 6 or 12 months. That's quite a lot quickly that EN or ISO standards that can be developed through 3 years, for example. Possible topics for CWAs are terminology, test methods, product specifications, but you must know that no safety aspects are not allowed to be the content of a CWA. And also it's advisable to avoid management systems or topics that are being standardized at the same time in standardization technical committees. There is the possibility to produce CWAs that are in the scope of standardization technical committees, but this must be permitted by the standardization technical committees. And finally, some internal considerations within the consortiums to make use, for example, of the available information. There are deliverables of the consortium of the project results that can be used to be converted into CWA, for example, or even to extract information from other deliverables that even could be confidential. About the standardization potentials, it's important that the CWA is useful outside the project. So, because we are talking about marketing, about technologies that's much rich the real life. And it's also advisable to avoid reference to the project itself. It is advisable to be general. And time for the last questions and the last concept that I would like you to keep in mind. Development of CWAs. You can choose all the possible answers that you esteem correct. Okay, thank you. I see that there's a lot of answers for the first question. And in fact, there's a tricky question. And this is a concept that I would like to remark. A same workshop agreement is the CWA, so it is the document. So it is not a working group. The working group is only the same workshop. So this is important to differentiate because they are different things. And well, you have correctly answered to the second and third questions. And it's true that CWAs are not always upgraded to EN standard, but there are cases of upgrades to EN standards. So thank you very much. Let's go with the end of the presentation. Okay. Final part. In this part, I will show you some success cases in which standardization activities have been performed and have obtained results. For example, the bionic aircraft project, in which two CWAs were developed, and they are now in the study of a possible upgrade to ISO standards. Another project, Titan, that also developed two CWAs in collaboration with IEC technical committees. The project Enerwater, that in this case, it is not a CWA, it is a technical report that was published by the CNTC 165. The project Next Tower that developed a CWA, and it's now working with the ISO TC 206 to revise an ISO standard. The project D2 EPC that created a working group. That means that until now there are not a specific standard produced, but in the future Several standards will be elaborated by this working group. The Visual CAD project that produced a CWA including a previously patented method. So this is also important because you must know that standards can include patented technology. And the same for the 4Planet project that produced a couple of CWAs, including patented technologies. Here you have on the screen some links to the specific sites that we have mentioned during this session, where you can find more information to go deeper into some aspect that we have addressed today. And thank you very much for your attention and participation. I'm happy that you answered correctly to most of the questions, and of course, please feel free to contact me if you have any other doubt or question. I will happy to answer. So thank you very much and see you next time.